Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Report's Reality Check. I'm the head pollster, Mark Mitchell, and that is a reality check for all of the people who saw it back in 2012. Probably historic as one of the most divisive political ads ever. Absolutely disgusting. And what's crazy about it is, it kind of works. The old ones are really afraid that their benefits are going to get cut. It's something that even now there's a psychological operation going on. And that's the topic of tonight's show. Not necessarily Medicare, but I think you can lump Social Security into the same topic. There's a lot of wild stuff happening, and we also have fresh numbers about it. So, hey, why not? One more of those situations where DOGE has just opened up an incredible new look at the government in a way that people just haven't had a chance to cope with before. But here's a quick note. That ad was put out by something called the Agenda Project Action Fund. And if this show goes off the rails, it's because I spent a little too much of my show prep digging into this organization to try and find something out. Turns out that there's an individual named Eric Payne associated with the Agenda Project Action Fund. And they put out like some really great stuff. This is like, it's like it looks like some really divisive things. And they're affiliated with a group called Tesseract Research Center, Inc. And what's interesting, I looked them up on ProPublica, poured through a few 990 filings, and what I was really interested in was their revenue line. And back in 2018, they got a massive $27 million cash infusion. Of course, they haven't spent all that, and they've been drawing it down over the last couple of years. But not a lot of transparency into who these people are, where their money's going, and where it's coming from. And I ran out of time, but I'm really interested because this is one of those weird nonprofits, these NGOs, that they don't even have a website up. They have $27 million, probably something like over $30 million in total funding over the last couple of years, putting out really partisan left-leaning crap, not a lot of transparency into who funds them, who works there, what the money's going to. And hey, if anybody's got the time and knows how to use these tools better than me, I was able to track them down to one SBA loan, but there's probably 1 million affiliated organizations. I don't know, but I'm guessing that this is one more organization that has contracted USAIDs. But we always start with propaganda. And so let's just take a look at what the Washington Post, like how they're framing this whole thing about Social Security. This is from the Post literally just like less than an hour ago. I think former Social Security officials describe hostile takeover by Musk team. DOGE officials also put millions of taxpayers' private data at risk and refuse to say why they needed access to it, the officials say. So this is literally the same pattern we've seen over and over, this DOGE pearl clutching. They're playing fast and loose with taxpayer data. They're being hostile to the poor government workers. It really does have all the hallmarks of modern day propaganda. This by Lisa Ryan. It came in aggressively. A former official who witnessed Elon Musk's team take over the Social Security Administration said, demanding access to sensitive taxpayer data, not just data, and refusing briefings on how the agency ensures the accuracy of its benefit system. Refusing briefings on just how it ensures the accuracy of its benefit. So DOGE showed up and they're like, listen, we're gonna dig into this data. And they're like, whoa, let me tell you how it works. And DOGE was like, no, screw off. You've done enough damage. We don't want your input. It's like that's what they're upset about and pearl clutching about. It's pretty crazy. They recklessly exposed data in unsecured areas outside Social Security offices. Reckless, the official said, potentially disclosing personally identifiable information on almost every American to people not authorized to see it. This is the same federal government that was like literally handing out taxpayer filings out of the IRS, and representatives sent by the U.S. DOGE service refused to explain why they needed taxpayer information that is protected by law. Former official says, like, yeah, like all this information is protected by law. It's just like they throw these things in there to punctuate their points and turn up the volume. It's like really kind of histrionic feeling. Despite their status as political appointees, the secretive members of the cost-cutting group overseen by Musk ignored the normal chain of command, instead communicating directly with DOGE. Flick describes a fast and tension-filled takeover of the agency and its sensitive data systems by DOGE in what amounted to a de facto coup. A coup by agency outsiders. They do not want outsiders in the Social Security systems. Listen, this is like what people voted for, and yet this just drips with divisive words like aimed at feeding the fear porn of the very few people still reading Washington Post, because as we all know, they've lost like almost 100,000 more subscribers after they decided to stop covering leftist propaganda in their op-ed column. Thanks, Jeff Bezos, literally destroying his own business. Pretty crazy. Let's skip ahead to the Associated Press and see what these guys are saying. Associated Press, U.S. AIDS victim. Musk eyes Social Security and benefit programs for cuts while claiming widespread fraud. Elon Musk published debunked theories about Social Security on Monday while describing federal benefit programs as rife with fraud, suggesting they will be a primary target in his crusade to reduce government spending. So they're really upset that Elon claims this stuff on social media, can take his case straight to the people, and the information gatekeepers of the former Democrat-led Washington, D.C. regime really hates that they can't just, use their old tactics in order to control the narrative here. The billionaire entrepreneur who is advising President Donald Trump suggested that 500 to 700 billion in waste needed to be cut. Most of the federal spending is entitlements, Musk told the Fox Business Network. That's the big one to eliminate. So this is going back to this like old trope that if you really want to cut government spending, and Republican and Democrat debt hawks are guilty of this. They say, well, it's entitlements. We just can't cut it. We can't cut that. The voters aren't going to allow it. And instead, if you want to get something done, if you really want to cut it, you got to scale back the benefits. So what is interesting is that Elon Musk comes out and says, well, there's signs of fraud. Like I found X, Y, and Z. And these people are fighting it. When in reality, if they were looking out for their customers, if the elected representatives were trying to ensure that U.S. voters, citizens, got their Social Security benefits, there should be a bipartisan effort to address these. That's the question everybody should be asking the propaganda press and the Democrats who control them. Stop ignoring the fraud and address it instead of using these nasty propaganda tactics to try and rile up your sheep there. Comments on the popular program and other benefits provided to Americans could rattle politicians on both sides of the aisle as Musk works to downsize the federal government, especially as he already faces blowback for his chainsaw-wielding approach to laying off workers and slashing programs. This is really sad. The chainsaw harmed their psyche. I don't think any people out there who haven't suffered from mass formation psychosis, who aren't still currently wearing masks or watching MSNBC with their cats, I don't think any of them looked at Elon Musk's chainsaw and said, wow, that's a bad thing. Man, we should poll on that. Let me write myself a note. Notes. Pull on the chainsaw. I think it'll be interesting to find out. But again, it's like they're literally painting cuts in government spending as a coup. Like people coming in and looking at the stuff and trying to find fraud as a coup just because they're losing power and control. They wanted the ability to do this themselves. I'm sure they would do it eventually, right? Like I'm sure they would get to it. But no, there is an op going on. And just go to Google and look for news. Oh, you know what? Let's just do, sorry, I was searching something else. Just go look for Social Security. Helps if you spell it right. And the headlines here are wild. I saw the AP article. CBS News, Social Security could soon take 100% of your benefit check if you're overpaid. A disruptive effect, how slashing staff at the Social Security Administration is sparking fears the system could collapse. Rules for repaying Social Security benefits are about to get stricter. Here's what to know. Here's the best age to take Social Security. Oh, that one's not bad. Musk taps private equity vendors to age DOGE at Social Security. Oh, evil billionaires. DOGE takeover of Social Security seems based on myth, says ex-senior official. Rolling Stone, Social Security insiders warn Trump and Musk could break the program. We are only like one step away from throwing Granny over the cliff because a lot of people rely on Social Security. You know, they check up on stuff. They like, if they see Social Security in a headline, they're going to take a look. And this is like wall to wall, like an op. Like this is all from just hours ago. Because Social Security is in the news today, basically, I think here's one of the reasons why, is that Elon Musk said this is a visual representation of the Social Security database. It's probably actually worse than this. But I had a good laugh at that. She said, Juanita Broderick says, we all know Social Security was okay until they started stealing from it. And Data Republican says, database. Yeah. Yeah, you know, there's a lot to address. And I saw this and I just thought it was a really well, worded summary. This is a very article. We won't get into all of it, but Don Serber, I really like this guy. Basically wrote an article about Trump's speech on March 4th, but he talked about 3 stories that basically the media overlooked. One of them is Social Security. President Trump's first State of the Union address to Congress was remarkable in many ways, not the least of which that he gave it. Democrats marked him for death last July, and they also persecuted him in the courts. Democrats even raided his wife's panty drawer. So it was remarkably predictable that they would try to hijack his speech by making it about them. Yeah, I think Trump knew that was going to happen. I think he probably predicted that they would just sit there and not clap at anything. And so I think he, prepped a lot of stuff that he just rubbed in their face, their own failures. Very effective optics. Nancy wasn't there to tear up her copy of the speech and pout, but Al Green was on hand to make an ass of himself and get kicked out. The speech itself seemed overlooked by the press, which focused on Democrat reaction. Yeah, that is true. The CIA's Drudge Report called it chaotic and ran a picture with someone holding a sign near him saying, "This is not normal." No, Democrats, it's not normal. And they've been having a problem with normalcy lately after that horrible Smash Brothers video they put out. Now there's an article I just read about, and I've noticed it as well, how they're just out of nowhere, all of them, at the same time, starting to swear a lot more. Good luck reaching middle America with that. But anyway, here's the part we want to look at. Trump cited the DOGE findings. He said, believe it or not, government database lists 4.7 million Social Security numbers from people aged 100 to 109 years old. It lists 3.6 million people from ages 110 to 119. Yeah, we have little Trump jokes interspersed here. He says, I don't know any of them. I know some people that are rather elderly, but not quite that elderly. 3.5 million people from ages 120 to 129, and it goes on. He even claimed that there was somebody as old as 350 years old, obviously before the founding of our country. The mainstream media was tripping all over itself to try and debunk that. But yeah, there's people apparently over 160 years old, which predates the Social Security program itself. I think the Social Security program is only 90 years old right now. Interesting. So let's get to the polling. And we've polled on Social Security a bunch. Usually it's pretty like samey questions. What's your impression on Social Security? How confident are you that you're going to get your benefits? But I tried to dig around and pull out the ones that sort of stuck out. And this is one of those ones where there's not like really a massive trend. In fact, the only trend I think I noticed is that in confidence of receiving your benefits, it kind of seemed to tick up during the Trump term. And that was obviously just because the economy got better. That we were coming out of the great financial crisis. But this article is from 2013. I just went back and picked like an early one, just like to give us a benchmark. 44% are confident they will receive all promised Social Security benefits. Most voters are still not confident that they will receive all promised benefits during their lifetime. There's overwhelming support for the view that voter approval should be required before any changes to the program are made. Interesting. Here are the cross tabs. We have Social Security favorability, and it has a low, got to share the new tab. It has a low, very favorable rating, 27%, but 33% somewhat favorable for a combined total of 60, 33% unfavorable. And Democrats just love this thing. They absolutely love it. 40% very favorable, 33% somewhat favorable. So that's 73%, almost 3 in 4 Democrats. And what's interesting is independents hate this least. Maybe they don't like being tethered to the government for their income, but still a majority have a favorable impression, 52%. And Republicans, actually, it's the same 52%, but they have a lower, very favorable at 17%. So this 60% majority makes it pretty favorable, like more than the CIA and FBI right now, but probably less than things like, your local police force. How confident are you that the Social Security system will pay all promised retirement benefits during your lifetime? And only 18% were very confident. Again, this is over a decade ago. 26% somewhat confident. So that puts it at 44%. Essentially split. No, sorry, underwater. 53% not confident. So underwater by a lot. 9 points. And Republicans way less confident than Democrats. Is Social Security a good deal for working Americans today? Again, middle of Obama's second term here. 48% say yes, 33% say no. And the old people love it, 62 to 19, but 18 to 39-year-olds are underwater, 37 to 41. I think they're not like worried about their retirement yet. Democrats think it's a good deal, 64% to 17. Republicans say no, 43% to 39. And is the current level of taxes paid into the Social Security and Medicare trust funds enough to fund all the benefits promised for today's workers? And people rightly say no, 58%, only 17% say yes. So this shows me that even back then, there was a pretty big lack of confidence that the government was going to be able to manage all their money, like had enough money to pay out the benefits. The confidence number was high, but when you only have 17% saying yes, that the taxes paid into the program are enough for the benefits, like that's a problem. And Republicans, Democrats, and independents are all agreed on this. But let's jump ahead 10 years. So this was 2 years ago, November 2023. Voters much more confident in Social Security, and we'll just skip to the chase. And look at this. And I really don't know how to explain it, but the impression of Social Security is now 73% favorable. That's a really big increase. It was only 60% before. And I really can't explain it. I don't know if people are a lot more into big government. Maybe they just haven't heard about like the unfunded liabilities, but 21% unfavorable, only 4% very unfavorable. This is really high favorability rating. People just love this thing. And part of it is the pickup. I mean, geez, look at this 65 and older. 87% of them love this. That's crazy. 72% of 40 to 64-year-olds. And Republicans are now like super favorable, up from way lower. We have 41% somewhat, 29% very. So that gets it up to 80%. 80% of Republicans have a favorable impression of Social Security. This also could be a signal of like bad economic times. Maybe people just need that social safety net more. But what's interesting too is that there's a lot more confidence that the system will pay all promised retirement benefits. This is crazy. And again, this is in the middle of Biden, the middle of an inflation crisis, and the weaponization of federal government. This also, maybe this is just like, listen, we do have a big government guy, and he might stomp on our throats and force us to take an experimental vaccine, but at least the money will be there. It'll be inflated, you know. But 23% very confident, 37% somewhat. So that brings it from 44% up to 60%. That's incredible. And the 18 to 39-year-olds, a way bigger number there, 57%. 80% of 65-year-olds are confident. That, you know, sort of makes sense. They're actually drawing down benefits. But look, the least confident here are middle-aged voters, 15% very confident. So this might be the people that are like the lights at the end of the tunnel. They're going to start getting these checks in the next decade or two. And maybe it's not a vote of confidence for the near-term future. Let's just go away. Republicans are more confident too. 19% very confident, 41% somewhat. So like 60%. Love your thoughts on like how to explain that movement. I don't have enough polls. I had some polls in the middle, but I looked at them and there weren't really like, they didn't really, explain to me any particular trend. And so it's just one of those things, you know, over time people drift, and really big drift. We also have some polling from 2023. Democrats gain on Social Security issues. I pulled this one out to show the trust on the issue. Which political party do you trust more to handle Social Security? This from March 2023. 46% say Democrats, 44% say Republicans. Now you have to understand, like when this was happening, Joe Biden was not well liked when this poll was taken. In fact, I think his approval rating was probably 42, 43%. And at the time in the matchups, I'm pretty sure he was underwater by like somewhere between 7 and 10 points in the 2024 hypothetical to Donald Trump. And so for Democrats to pull out a lead on an issue like this, let me tell you, they were not leading on many issues. It was like education, abortion, and climate change. Actually, I think they might have been tied on abortion at the time. So for them to have a 2-point lead of Social Security, that means it's a safe Democrat issue. 46% say Democrats, 44% say Republicans. 18 to 39-year-olds overwhelmingly say Democrats, 53% to 37%. It's like on certain things, they want that big government, right? On certain things, it's better to have the Democrats paying into my retirement. Democrats trust Democrats way more. Only 79% of Republicans trust Republicans. 85% of Democrats trust Democrats. But here the independents actually lean Republican. So it's really the crossover advantage that's hurting Republicans here. Are Republicans trying to cut Social Security? And I don't think this kind of question really would have changed much over the last 2 years. But 45% say no, 40% say yes. 18 to 39-year-olds are most likely to say yes by age, 44% of them. It's only 36% of 65 and older. Women are more likely to say yes than men by 4 points. No race signal, though. I'm surprised at that. I would have expected maybe something in the 60s or 70s with black voters, but it's 41% to 43%. Almost exactly the same as white voters. Well, that's cool. Democrats, 67% say Republicans are trying to cut Social Security, but 72% of Republicans say no. And independents say no, 49% to 33%. So, pretty confident, but a 14% not sure number overall. Agree or disagree, the president has devolved. Oh, I forgot this one. This is cool. This is like the granny signal, throwing granny off a cliff. Agree or disagree, the president has devolved into just lying shamelessly about Republican positions to frighten senior citizens into voting for him. Joe Biden lied a lot. And so I don't know if the people taking this poll knew about any of the specific things that Joe Biden said about Social Security. Probably very many of them didn't. And so this is probably just a Joe Biden's a liar signal. But 39% strongly agreed, another 17% somewhat. So that's 56%, super strong majority. And 37% disagreed with that statement. This is that same kind of signal we've seen. The 55-35. Take the least favorable, the lower bar stuff in Donald Trump's MAGA platform. Mass deportations will be above 55-35. Democrats could cooperate with Republicans. You get a 55-35 signal. It's not like the 65 30 signal we see on like the Fed's direction, the weaponization of the government, the virus getting leaked from Wuhan, but still, like, this is not neck and neck. This is people think Joe Biden was a liar about GOP positions, frightening senior citizens. And here, not much of an age signal, but 18 to 39-year-olds, this is the beginning of that trend where they're starting to wake up more than everybody else and pay attention to what's going on. When we talk about Ukraine, we'll look at some numbers that sort of show that. But look, 40% of Democrats agreed with that statement. That's wild. And 77% of Republicans and a majority of independents. But that brings us to today. Actually, I'll go to the story. The headline, majority suspect fraud in Social Security and support DOGE audit. So this is how you know that the mainstream media is having basically zero effect. Because all they're doing right now is all running the same kind of stories in the headlines. Donald Trump is having DOGE break in. All of these revered federal workers aren't being allowed to give their input. Personal data is being put at risk. Donald Trump's just slashing with Elon Musk's chainsaw. Like all of that over and over again in almost every story on every topic. So think about that when you look at these numbers. But here we go with the confidence about Social Security system paying all promised retirement benefits. And we still have, 55%? So down now. And that's interesting because Donald Trump's in office. So that might be a signal of a Democrat versus a Republican president, down from, I think it was 60, down 5 points. And here, the party signals are lower Republican numbers, lower Democrat numbers, 45%. So it's really, what did the Democrats go down from? Democrats went from, that's big. Democrats went from 71% saying they're confident to now, where is it? 71% to now 45%. Offset by a Republican increase. That's major. So that's probably has nothing to do with the topic of Social Security. They just don't trust the government with Donald Trump at the head. There was a bigger signal with that with Republicans when Biden got into office. So I guess it just is what it is. But look at political party trust on the issue of Social Security. Republicans take the lead. It was Democrats 46 to Republicans 44 just 2 years ago. Republicans are in the lead now, 44% to 43%. But 13% are not sure. That's a signal that this isn't everybody's like biggest issue by far. But look at the 18 to 39-year-olds. They trust Republicans more. And back then, they trusted Democrats more. So this is just one more sign. And it's not as big as the other ones. It's not as big as the fact that 18 to 39-year-olds have a 60% favorability rating of Trump, although it's dropped some. not as big as that signal, not as big as the 54% of 18 to 39-year-olds, more than anybody else by like over 10 points, who think the country's on the right track. But a 4-point advantage to Republicans on 18 to 39-year-olds is not a good sign for Democrats, because this was a safe Democrat issue, and Republicans now lead on it. So that's the problem, is the generic ballot probably hasn't moved at all. But they're losing the ability to message on stuff. So people still say, yeah, I'll probably vote for Democrat. I'll probably vote for a Republican. But it's like, what are Democrats going to run on? And I've been pounding the table about that for a long time. They've just literally created this loony bin where all they can do is virtue signal against like Trump's actual things that he's trying to do that voters like. There's no crossover advantage here. So the Republicans got rid of their crossover advantage. And that's why, independents really didn't change. So that's why, in fact, I think the lead among independents dropped some. So that's why Republicans lead now, because with Donald Trump in office, the Republicans trust the Republicans more on the issue of Social Security. Imagine that. Might be a DOGE effect, but this also might show the DOGE effect. Would you support or oppose having the Department of Government Efficiency do an audit on the Social Security system? Like, do I have to put it back up? Do I have to put this Washington Post article back up? Former Social Security officials described a hostile takeover by the Musk team. This is what voters really think. And surprise, surprise, it's not what the Washington Post thinks. 41% of U.S. likely voters strongly support a DOGE audit of the Social Security program. Another 18% somewhat. 59%, almost 6 in 10. Very, very, very popular. Only 35% are opposed. Only 23% are opposed strongly. 18 to 39-year-olds support it way more than everybody else. That's 66%, 2/3 of 18 to 39-year-olds. That's wild. It's like 10 points less among everybody else. That's really wild. More men than women. Again, no race signal. So that's the thing. It's like among black voters, the Republicans might still have that brand disadvantage. But black voters love DOGE. I don't think black voters love this idea of sort of this aristocratic class of DC swamp creatures, telling them how to live and lying to them and taking their money. I think this is going to create a huge problem. I think we're going to see bigger and bigger black leads for Trump-like candidates. But 43% of Democrats supported DOGE audit of Social Security. That's incredible. And it's 82% of Republicans, 62% strongly. I never want to hear an elected Republican in Washington, D.C. say anything bad about DOGE. 82% of Republicans support this. And listen, you're going to pick up independents too if you do this kind of thing, because it's 53% of independents who support and only 37% who don't. But here's the good one. I promised you guys, and we're going to keep doing it, promised an expose, like a series of polls over all of 2025, incrementally digging deeper and deeper into fraud, waste, and abuse. And obviously accountability and punishment of all of the theft in Washington, D.C. We had before the polling where 70% of U.S. likely voters are angry at the level of waste, fraud, and abuse in the government, and 70% think it's at least somewhat likely that federal bureaucrats are stealing taxpayer money. How likely is it that an audit of the Social Security system would reveal widespread fraud in the program? 37% very likely, 24% somewhat likely, 61%. Only 33% say not likely, only 15% say not likely yet. 33% not likely. That's very similar to the 30% who say they don't trust the federal government. And so now we'll look at some numbers later about Twitter, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is a reflection of the fact that people have just lost so much trust in the government Although keep in mind, we still have really high Social Security favorability numbers. So individual programs, individual agencies can be popular, but the federal government itself and Congress all have horrible, horrible, incredibly low marks. I don't know if this is a signal in general about mistrust in the government or this is Trump's message breaking through. It's probably a little column A, a little column B. Look at the 18 to 39-year-olds, though. That is 72%, more than anybody else by far, with that 37% somewhat likely number. That's cynicism and anger. 18 to 39-year-olds are taking back their country. Poll after poll after poll shows this. And look at the black column. Democrats are going to lose the black vote. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But look at that. 71% of black voters say that it's at least somewhat likely that an audit of Social Security would reveal widespread fraud. Widespread fraud in the program. Obviously, Republicans. What's that? 80%. But a significant amount of Democrats, too. This is bipartisan. And so you have every single one of those lefty mainstream outlets running cover for the regime. And the voters aren't having it. Like, this is what they want. Donald Trump's giving Kamala Harris voters stuff that they didn't even know they wanted. If you've learned something, please follow us at rasmussenreports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. And thanks for watching.